Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Jai Hind. It's my proud privilege and my honor to have with us a very esteemed guest, very esteemed, who is highly revered and respected all over, especially in the theater circles. She needs no introduction. You all know her. Many of you have seen her perform in amazing plays. But just customary, if I have to speak a few lines, let me tell you one thing. It was the new millennium. We had
Oh,
just entered into the.
can I show my book?
Yes, please, ma'am. Of course you can. Of course you can.
Okay, that's my
We would.
book which I've written, and it's got all the details about my theatre and my life. So I would like anybody who is watching and is interested in me to please read the book.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this book is
Okay?
available online. It is available on Flipkart, on
Yeah, it
Amazon,
is
in
on
your nearest
Amazon. You
bookstore.
can get it on Amazon. Yeah,
You can get it
it is
anywhere. I
available
mean, it's
on.
just
Okay,
available.
now
It's
talk
and
to me. Finished. Enough
yes,
of
ma'am.
that. Now talk to me.
Right, ma'am. So, well, it was the year, the new millennium. We had just come into the year 2000, and I had taken part in a play representing my college, Ferguson College, Pune, and it was held. The festival was at IIT Mudai, at IIT Powai. It was a Mood Indigo festival, and among the panel of juries was one very elegant, sophisticated, very classy lady who was there, and she complimented me and I got a prize there. And it was before that itself, I've been a huge fan of Dolly Thakore. The gentleman,
I don't
she started
remember that, but wonderful because my memory is all gone. So
man. I reminded you of this, many years later on at Prithvi when we had met.
okay.
I said, ma'am, you had
Uh,
judged me in this uh, Barak place. The gentleman, the Dolly Thakur, started a career as a news anchor with Doordarshan, with BBC, in fact, when she has trained formally with BBC, and after that, she was looking
let
after.
me correct you. Let me correct you first. I did not train with the BBC. I was one of those who applied to the BBC and I got a job, but it was never in broadcasting or anything. I was an editorial assistant with the World Service of the BBC. But because they needed Indian faces and Indian voices speaking in English, so I trailed into radio. And I started my career on radio, which in any case I was doing in Delhi. I was at All India Radio Delhi, but again, very little. Because I was so young at that time. Nobody looks at you when you're that young. Now that I'm all gray haired and things, I'm getting all the compliments that you're giving me.
Wow. So you trained on the job. So when you were working with them, it was training for you as well. So of course, but the
My
fact
whole
remains.
life, my whole life has been that training on the job. I haven't had any actors training or theater training, but it's all been because I've been interested in these things that I've been exposed to people and exposed to speaking and mics and things like that.
Absolutely,
So
ma'am.
there's
And
hope for
as you rightly,
everybody. You don't have to be a National School of Drama.
very well said, ma'am. Very well said. Exactly. And ma'am, of course, let's start from the time about your journey when you worked with BBC and thereafter subsequently you were handling the casting of Richard Attenborough's Gandhi and you were casting actors for that. And let's start your journey from the time as you rightly said, you went as an editorial assistant in the BBC, in the radio. Let's start your journey. Aapki zabani from you, ma'am.
Um, I mean, you're jumping a great deal. My BBC foray was when I was 21, 22 years old. And Gandhi was when I was 50 years old. So there's hardly any link. But I did meet and get exposed to a lot of people. Uh, I'd heard of Richard Attenborough, I'd never met him. I had a friend of mine who was always talking about Richard Attenborough. giving her mink coats and dropping her in his Mercedes. I never had any of that experience, and I never saw it there. But suddenly one day the doorbell rang here in 1980, in 1978 it was. And I'm going to share this with the audience. I was breastfeeding my son on a little divan near where I'm sitting right now. And I opened the door, and there was my friend Rami Dubey and Richard Attenborough. And they walked in and they sat on the floor on my divan. I didn't have any furniture in those days. There were just these two gaddaw on the floor, and he sat on the floor. And I had a host of pictures, a collage of all the actors on my wall. And so he began to talk, and it was about 2:30 or 3 when more or less the same time that I'm talking to you right now. And so we began to talk about theatre. And before I knew it, 2 days later, he called me up and said, asked me if I'd like to be the casting director. I'd never heard of the title or never knew what it was. But I've never said no to anything. I've never shied away from anything. So I said, of course. And I learned everything on the job. But that's been my life. And that's what I want to say to all the young people who are watching, that don't shy away from anything. The life is open for you. Take the plunge, take the challenge, and go ahead and do it. Don't be afraid of failure.
Ma'am, ma'am, but let's start from the time when you joined BBC. I mean, when you were 21 years old. Let's start your journey from there. Let's take it from there, and then we'll go subsequently to that. As you rightly said, that I was jumping the gun. Well, let's not jump that. So now, tell me about the time as a young girl when you started working with BBC, and I presume it was because of your speech, your diction, your delivery was so good that you automatically got picked up to do the anchoring shows from there.
You know, um, my diction or my pronunciation, etc., I have learned in the schools where I have been brought up, which were certainly Jesuit schools. They were in Kanpur and Hyderabad and Delhi and places like that. So there was no official training. It's not that I attended a Barry John class or anything like that, which today a lot of people are doing. But um, uh, and from there, when I went to London, I wasn't taken up because I spoke well or my voice was good. They were just desperate for people, and I was lucky that I got that job. And I proved myself. The one advantage perhaps I had was that I was able to prove and impress them. And I'll tell you a very interesting story. In 1965, which is the year that I went to London, um, I suddenly got a call from the Central Office of Information, which is like the head of all the British councils and the British broadcasting places all over. And the Central Office of Information rang me up and said, we'd like you to come to meet us because we want you to do some Hindi translations and record them. And I said, you must be joking. My Hindi was juti lao, garam pani lao, chai lao. I never spoke of it. We were all spoiled kids brought up under the Raj at that time. So we never, I couldn't speak Hindi at all. And there were these people at the Central Office of Information asking me to, they handed me 6 scripts of 8 minutes each and said, translate these into Hindi and speak them. I said, you must be joking. But apparently, they had rung up the BIS in Delhi and said, we want somebody to do Hindi translations. And they pointed them in my direction. I didn't know what Central Office of Information was at that time either. And they gave them my number and said, look, you've got the Hindi expert sitting in London itself. And that's how I stumbled into all this. But as I said, I worked hard. It used to take me 18 hours a day to translate one 8 minute script from Hindi to English. As I said, my Hindi at that time, my from English to Hindi. At that time, my Hindi was only, as I said, juti lao, pani lao, khana lagao, that kind of thing. But my God, I learned on the job. And I did that for all the 3.5, 4 years that I was in London. And okay. And so the funny thing is that when I first sat in front of the mic on first day, and the recordist put on the mic and said, "Would you announce your name?" And I said, "London newsletter read by Dolly Rawson." In those days, I was a Rawson. He quickly put the thing off and said, "Madam, we can't have you saying a British name. Please, we want an Indian name." So, literally on the spot, in 2 minutes, I changed my name to Kavita. And Kavita was a very lovely, pretty girl in school with me who was clever. She was a science student. I was a bloody art student, so I never even bothered about it. And but I was in awe of this girl, and she was a friend of mine in Kanpur. We were in class together. So I quickly said Kavita, and I couldn't use her surname, so I took Mehta. And for people that perhaps are familiar with theatre and critics, Kavita became Kavita Nagpal later, who was a very well known Hindustan Times drama critic for many, many years till she left us about a year ago.
Of course, of course.
And so I said Kavita Mehta, and I probably said Kavita Mehta. So I went on broadcasting from London for almost 4.5 years, 4 years as Kavita Mehta. Now, a corollary to that is that when I returned to India and I went into, and I had an assignment with All India Radio, and I opened the door of the station director. And in those days, the station director's tables were the size of my drawing room, as it were. And there was Dan sitting there. And I said, "Arun bhai, वो broadcast कब है या कितने बजे है या उसका क्या करना है?" The man sitting opposite him said, "ये तो कविता मेहता की आवाज है." I was stunned, and I said, "What do you mean? How do you know?" Because nobody knew me. My parents didn't know about Kavita Mehta. And there was this man sitting opposite saying, he turned out to be the station director of Radio Mauritius. And he had come to visit the station director of All India Radio, Mumbai, Bombay in those days. And just by hearing my voice from the back, he said, "Ye to Kavita Mehta ki awaaz hai." And of course, I was thrilled because I love this kind of recognition always. And as I said, nobody knew me as Kavita Mehta. But then, of course, I was interviewed and I had to share the story, and perhaps a few people know about it. But that was also decades ago, so nobody knows me now.
That is so interesting, ma'am. That's like really amazing. Ma'am, I want to ask you this something I've always wanted to ask you since you have been on the job. You have done theater. You have, in fact, you have excelled in theater. You are an encyclopedia of theater. Okay, and ma'am, you have also presented shows on television as an anchor. That's a subsequent thing that you came and as an editorial associate and you joined in. Ma'am, it's very important to have a good speech, diction, voice in both the professions. So, do you think a news anchor can be a good actor and an actor can be a good news anchor?
You know, when I started in my career, as I said, there was no training ground. Your training ground was what you did in school and then college and on stage, after that. And but that has held me in very good stead. And I'm so pleased that I had that grounding because now people in the theater, they have an alternate profession. They can become coaches, speech and drama coaches to various corporate houses. A lot of the international, multinational corporate houses and the Indian ones are all asking for people from the theater, looking for people from the theater to coach their sometimes senior executives, leave alone the junior executives. But that's very good because a number of people have got employment and it's now become a profession. So, as I said, I stumbled upon all this, and but then I've been now considered authority on this, and lots of people come to me and ask me to guide them, coach them, either in dramatics or in speech and presentation. And I mean, you learn on the job, and so those that have observed me will now know the way that one communicates with eye contact, with gestures, because you know that these are things that will get people's attention. You don't just stand there and say, I am Dolly Thakore and I'm doing this, and therefore you're there. You know, you've got to modulate your voices, you've got to put expression into it. That's how you get on. I've noticed how Ali has learned a great deal and how he's holding and mesmerizing people with his little uh, interviews that he does with all the biggies, all the generals and people like that he does.
Ma'am, that's very kind of you to say. It's your love for me and your blessings. And what can I say? Ma'am, tell me one thing. Do you remember the time when you did your first play?
Of course I do.
Yes.
Uh,
So, which play was
Well,
that,
I
and how
remember
old were you that time?
I was five. I was 5 years old when I first appeared on stage. My father
Give
was
me
in
a
the
high
Air
five for
Force,
that,
and the
ma'am. Give me
Air
a high five. Give me a high five for that.
well, high
Ma'am.
five. Here you are. And and the Air Force camps used to celebrate Republic Day, Independence Day, and I was asked to play Krishna in one of those celebrations. So of course the curtain opened and I was all painted blue and I had on the sari and I took my first step and the sari opened up. And so the curtain came down and the ladies all rushed in and tied me up and tidied me up, etc. And when the curtain opened, there was a huge applause from fellow officers' wives and children that were there. And I loved that applause. I didn't care what mistake I'd made, what faux pas I'd made. But since that applause began to ring in my ears, I have always done things which will bring me applause. So, right from the age of 10, 11, I've taken part in debates, I've taken part in elocution, I've taken part in uh, competitions, I've taken part in a lot of youth festivals all over. I've even got a very lovely memory of sitting at the foot of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, who we used to adore in our days, and with Panditji putting his hand on my shoulders to get up. And I didn't wash that choli for 3 months after that. I have lovely memories of growing up, and my career in communications and speech and drama is what has made me what I am, and I'm very proud of it.
Ma'am. Ma'am, and of course, you must have perhaps lost count in the amount of play that you have done, or you've kept a track of the plays you have done. You know the number right
No,
from your childhood.
I have kept, yeah, yeah. No, no, I have kept a track of the plays. And if you read my book, there is a list of plays. Here you are. List of, I don't know whether you can see that list of performances. Can you see that?
Right. Yes, yes.
And so there
So,
are pages and pages of it. So they're all there, all the list of performances. But the last one that I'm doing and I'm still involved in is a vagina monologue. And I am so proud to be associated with it. And you won't believe it, on the 12th of March, we had a show of vagina monologues in Indore. So I cut short my trip to Jaipur, where I was launching my book at the Jaipur Lit Fest, and I went to Indore on the 12th morning and performed Vagina Monologue at 4:30 or 5 in the evening over there. And we were supposed to be in Baroda. At the moment, the plans have got a bit washed out, but otherwise we were supposed to be in Baroda on the 13th of June. So I'm still there. So anybody who wants me to act, don't ask me to learn lines, because learning lines is very difficult now. And I had a photographic memory. That is why I remembered as a newsreader, because I hardly looked at my script. I would look down and be able to pick up almost 8 to 10 words at one go. And people often came to me and said, "Do you know your script by heart? Do you learn your script by heart?" But anyone who's been a newsreader will know that you are given the script only half an hour before, so there's no way that you can learn the script by heart. But I used to pay so much attention to who the ministers were, how much they had lost the election by or won the election by. I knew all those details at the tip of my tongue, and I was interested so as to read my newspapers cover to cover. I'm sure all the
ma'am,
newsreaders will tell you that you
ma'am,
have
but
to be interested in your subject.
did theater experience must have really helped you because history has proved, be it in Hollywood, be it in the Indian film industry, all the great actors, even in film, on camera, they most of them are the great ones have come from a theater background. They all have a theater experience. And so, as a news reader, your theater experience must have really helped you a lot as well.
I Yeah, I'm sure it did. But I was very lucky because when I started reading the news, I was with Alec Badamsi. And I remember there were certain words that even I used to mispronounce on TV. And he would tell me and correct me. Words like regular, words like development, words like beginning. I know that all of us mispronounce those very often. And he checked me, and of course, I learned it there, and I've been passing that knowledge on to anybody else who's interested. So,
Ma'am, you are really, I mean, if when one talks about a classy lady, or one talks about one's pronunciation or speech diction, they give you an example every time. In normal
oh,
conversation, when people say, oh, Dolly Thakore, that is the benchmark which people have drawn today. Ma'am, I would
it
like
used to
to
be
know.
such. But can I just say, before mobiles came in and answering machines came in, if you had to dial 198 or 197 or 19 whatever to get your trunk calls booked. And the minute, I mean, it's amazing, but this was only in Maharashtra. But the minute I dialed the telephone operator, they would immediately say, "ये तो Dolly Thakur की आवाज है," and it would be so good because I'd be connected immediately. Then even at the shops, you got attention first. I travel in rickshaws or a taxi, and quite often the people wouldn't even take money from me because I was Dolly Thakur. So I've enjoyed my reputation and have exploited it to no end.
Ma'am, ma'am, you stay in such a posh area in town, and I've had the honor of coming to over to your place and having lunch with you and seeing the beautiful paintings behind you. I mean, these are, and I remember this conversation that we had where you were mentioning about the time you went to Pune and you heard Mr. Rajneesh Osho speak. And when he started speaking, you don't really believe in whatever his philosophy was and whatever the. But when you heard him speak, you were truly mesmerized, and you were just
Luckily, he had a good voice, and I'm greatly influenced by voices. I get very impressed by voices. But he had a good voice, and the content of what he spoke was amazing, and I really was mesmerized by what he said. I wasn't a Rajneesh follower. A lot of my friends were, but I've certainly been impressed by the person that I met on that particular day.
ma'am. Ma'am, you being a renowned voice coach as well, you train people in to communicating better and pronouncing and such things. So, ma'am, what are the small tips you would like to share to our young viewers who aspire to speak well? Like I'll give you my story, ma'am.
All right. My first tip to them is open your mouth and speak. There are a few exercises, learn them and do those standing in the bathroom, or exercise your mouth muscles, just like you have to exercise in cricket when you're playing your elbows and your wrists, etc. Similarly, in speaking, you have to exercise your facial muscles. And that you don't go and talk like that, but it's amazing how it comes so naturally. Now, I don't have to enunciate so visibly, but it's now natural to me that every word comes out clear, comes out distinct, comes out decipherable. And so, as a tip just on this program, to all of those that are listening, open your mouth and speak. Just exercise your facial muscles, and you'll be amazed at what ease you can then enunciate and speak.
Ma'am, ma'am, my theater experience, I had a very bad voice as a small child. I would stammer, stutter, I had a very bad lisp, and very shy, underconfident, very unsure of myself as a child. But then over the years, I gradually started working on myself, and I did exactly what you are saying right now. I would work, and I'm still on the path of recovery. I would say I haven't recovered from it fully as yet.
There is a live example sharing your own experiences. So there you are, kids, whoever is there. I hope there are young people listening to it also. And there are senior citizens too, because it's never too late to learn and never too late to start.
Ma'am, talking on this, I would really want to thank your friend Vivek. Vivek, this is for you. You helped us. You struggled with us to come online. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, my dear friends, boys and girls, people who have a mental block to technology, they feel, oh, I would not, they don't even attempt it. So they leave it there. Now, Dolly ma'am also is one of the people who probably thought that probably technology I would not be able to make. I told on the phone, ma'am, don't worry. It's my responsibility. It's my promise to you. I will ensure that you are connected to me without any difficulty. And of course, we took the help of Vivek, and here we are. And you are seeing a live example. Dolly ma'am said that no, no, I'm very technologically challenged. I said, ma'am, I am worse than you. Don't worry. And here we are. Ma'am, as you said, learning never stops. I'm very happy that, at least today, you have tried StreamYard for the first time, perhaps. You have been on Zoom, on online meetings, but StreamYard is something. And here, living example, a senior citizen who has learned new technology completely. Ma'am, also let's hear now about your casting much later, though you might accuse me of jumping, but because of paucity of time, I know you're busy as well. I would like to know a few interesting aspects. All of them are interesting, but a few of them I had highlighted in my mind. When you were casting
I'll tell you
for,
what. I was casting, I was casting for Pamela Rooks for Dance Like a Man. And I was casting director for that. And Pamela Rooks was, she's now the late Pamela Rooks, but at that time she was Pamela Rooks, lovely, young, energetic young woman, filmmaker, who'd also made Train to Pakistan, who'd also made Miss Preet's Children. And so she came and we invited, I've had lined up a whole lot of people to come and meet her to play in this film, Dance Like a Man. And so the male actor that we needed had to have legs and to show that he was a dancer. So I hope that he won't mind my mentioning his name, but Arif Zakaria, who is a very good actor and he's acted with me on stage. I called him to uh, screen test for Dance Like a Man, and he turned up, and we watched him. It very had all the qualities in him and pleasant looking and everything. And Pam turned to me and said, "Wow, it's all very well, but I'd like to see his legs because after all, an Indian dancer has to have good legs." So I turned to him and I said, Arif, can we see your legs? And I am so proud to say that Arif didn't hesitate for a minute and he took off his pants and we saw his legs. And he was cast immediately, not because he showed us his legs, but he had the talent to do so. And so if you go and see the film Dance Like a Man, you will see it all in there. And Dance Like a Man has now become very famous because Lilette Dubé has done so many stage shows of it. And it's still running. I think she's had about 800 shows of the play all over the world.
of course, ma'am. I had the honor of being directed by Lilith when I was in school. She had come to our school, Lawrence School, Lovedale, and she did Woody Allen's "Don't Drink the Water." I used to be in class ninth at that time. So that, and of course, with her sister Lucian also, I worked with her subsequently. Ma'am, also would like to know your take on films because you have now, of course, you did Page Three, and now you've done in 2022, you've done another film. So, would like to know your take on how enjoyable was it for a theater personality like you, who has faced the camera as a newsreader, now facing the camera as an actor.
Look, it's a totally different experience. On stage, you are focused, you are there, and the play revolves around you. At least the plays that I have done. I- In cinema, you do one scene for about 2 minutes and you go off. So it's a totally different experience. But I enjoyed the first film that I ever acted in was Page Three from Madhur Bhandarkar. And there again, I mean, I like to share my beginnings with that. I once got a call from him to say, Dolly ji, हम शूटिंग कर रहे हैं वो सासुन डॉक्स के पास तो आप आइए शूटिंग देखने तो आई सेड हाँ जरूर मगर मैं मेरा प्ले है वजाइना मोनोलॉग एनसीपीए में नरीमन कोर्ट में तो मैं वो खत्म करके अगर आप लोग अभी तक शूटिंग कर रहे होंगे तो मैं जरूर आऊंगी and when I finished my play, I rang him up and said, हमारा प्ले अभी खत्म हुआ. He turned around and said, हमारी तो शूटिंग शुरू ही नहीं हुई है अभी तक. But that's the difference between a play and a shoot. But anyway, I had to go elsewhere to another cocktail party. I finished that. And then I rang him up and he said, I said, look, by that time it was, I think, about 10:30. So he said, ha ha, aa jaiye. So I turned up at the shooting and I was very well received by all the crew and the staff that was there, etc. And then I was standing almost next to Madhur Bhandarkar, and the camera was in front. And Madhur turned to me and said, Dolly ji, आप एक line कहेंगी? I said, ज़रूर. I mean, I had no hang-ups about it. So he said, and this scene that we were there was a cabaret scene going out on stage, a girl dancing. And he said, बोल दीजिए, uh, what was gosh, I forgot the line. I remembered it now. Uh, Truck driver's song. That's right. The line was truck driver's song. He said, "Was itna bol dijiye truck driver's song." I said, "ठीक है." And I said, "Truck driver's song." I thought that was it. About a week later, I got a phone call to say, "Dolly ji, kal shooting hai, aapko bulaya." I said, "What shooting?" That I'd been cast in it and that I was required to come on the set. It was wonderful because with me were Maya Alag, Soni Razdan, Anju Mahendru, and me. And we were in big gang. So between shots, we used to rush off to in those days, these malls had shopping malls that had just started. So we used to go off to the shopping mall and then come back, do our one little scene. I loved my shooting experience. But what was amazing is that I had 2 or 3 lines to say in the film. And uh, once I was returning from Lucknow and I was at Lucknow airport, and a very traditionally dressed uh, Muslim gentleman with churidars and an achkan, and he walked past and he said, "Show me something in white." That was another line of mine from the film Page Three, which I had done about 8 years ago. And I looked at him and, he just nodded and he went off. So you can imagine the impact that films make on people. I don't have very many experiences to relate about that because I haven't done that many films. So the latest one that I've done is Bachan Pandey. I have a 30-second scene in that. But it's amazing how many people have rung up and said they remember that they've sent me photographs, click stills of me in Bachan Pandey also. I'm not going to comment on the film, but my part is in there. So it's a
This
totally different experience. Totally different experience.
just proves a
No
fact, ma'am.
wonder
It's
the
not the
film
length.
stars have such a large and such a huge following. But
It's not the length of the role. It's the way you perform a role, and that's commendable, ma'am. That's really commendable, ma'am. In theater, like you, do you what do you think of Stanislavski's method of theater of his performance of his acting?
I am a method actor. I like that. So to me, that is very important. And in fact, I've been trained, in a sense, in all the plays that I've done, and the people who have directed me have directed me along those lines. So that's the only method that I know. And and I do. I get
That's
very
wonderful.
emotionally involved in the kind of plays.
Absolutely, ma'am. Because when I was reading his books, an actor prepares, preparation of a character, and I could relate to it so well. And that is a method that is which should be adopted by all the actors, in fact, who want to do theatre. Ma'am, now coming to your book, very interesting, ma'am. Sometime back, I asked you, do you have an account of all the plays that you did? You said yes, but is it when you were writing your book? Is it because of your book? You got back things in order, and you said, okay, I did my first play, second play, third play, and then 10th and then 100 or whatever. So now, is that the record, or you had it in your mind? Okay, I know it back of my mind, which all plays I have done.
I have a very good memory of the pre 2000 years. That means up till 1999 and even up till 2008 or the earlier of this particular century. I've got a very good memory. I didn't have to refer to anything. I can still remember dates of where I went, when I went, who I met, and all that has been just written down in or dictated to whoever was willing to listen to me uh, in my book. Now, I think my memory's got a bit rusted, and but even now, when I tell people, for instance, uh, I tripped on a tile, but I remember I tripped on the tile on the 25th of November, 2021, and I was my book was being released at the JW Marriott on the 25th, and 2 days later it was at the Otters Club, and after that I went 3rd of January, 3rd of December to 13th of December, I went to Bangalore to Nityagram to watch Surupa Sen dance and also to launch my book at two clubs in Bangalore. But I remember these dates. They're not written down, they're not in front of me, but they're all in my head. And then on the 21st of December, I went to Panchgani because my friend Farzana Contractor, who used to be with Afternoon and then Assam now is with Upper Crust and Dogs and More. And she's a very dear friend, so she's much younger than I am, but she's a very dear friend. She launched my book in Panchgani. And it was what a marvelous launch we had there in the surroundings and the people, and oh, it was really lovely. After that, I went to the doctor, and the doctor put my leg in plaster, etc.
Oh God.
But because I was traveling so much, no, in fact, I went to Bangalore all in plaster, and I even launched the book at Otters Club and things in plaster. But then after that, I've I had the plaster removed and everything, and I'm limping around, but that doesn't stop me from going anywhere. And if you want to know, I'm going to Wendell Rodrick's birthday celebration at the Palladium today.
Oh,
Straight out.
lovely, lovely, ma'am, lovely, lovely. That is so nice, ma'am. It's been such a pleasure and honor, and I know you have to go for a birthday party as well, and of course, Wendell Rodrigues is need no introduction. We all are fan of his designing and the way he designs clothes. Amazing, ma'am. Any last message you would like to give to our viewers who are watching you, coming straight from Dolly Thakur?
Well, I would say be interested in life and in people. It doesn't matter. Don't condemn anybody because they are not well known or that they are not in the same line as you. Like, I hardly know anyone in the financial market or the marketing spheres. But that doesn't mean that I don't know the people. I do know them. I have interviewed them. Luckily, I was in a communications area, so I did get to meet them. Um, Mind you, they are all much, much younger. The whole world has changed, but that doesn't stop me from still being interested in things that are going on. And that is my advice to all the people. Be interested, go ahead, do it. Now, I don't know very much about poetry, but I have a lot of poets as my friends. I can't write poetry, and I feel bad because I can never exchange things with them with the same intellectual capacity that they do with, say, the others. Jeet Tahir, Adil Jasawala, uh, Anju Makija, all the young ones that are coming up. But that doesn't stop me from attending their poetry sessions or their plays or their rehearsals. Or and there was a time when I used to travel from NCPA to the Prithvi Theatre because at that time traffic was not as bad as it was. So I would see a 6 o'clock play at the NCPA and take a taxi and go to the Prithvi Theatre. And in fact, uh, uh, Satyadev Dubey. Again, it's a name in theatre that people would know. I'm sorry I'm throwing these names that for
No,
many
no,
of
of
you
course,
who would
ma'am.
be.
Pandit Adib Dubey, of course, such a treat to hear the name itself. Please, ma'am. Please.
And so Dubey turned to me and said, डॉली को तो मेडल मिलना चाहिए क्योंकि 6 बजे का शो वहाँ छोड़ कर आइए और अब पृथ्वी में 9 बजे का शो देख रही है and I mean but that is it's because of the interest and the love for the theatre. And okay, that was theatre, but there are lots of other things that one can do. When I was going through my diaries, I had 6 appointments per day. Other people want to sit and eat and sit. I don't do that. I mean, food is not one of my big things. So, I don't spend time in the kitchen. I can't cook for you. I was a good cook. I'm not saying that I wasn't, but not anymore.
Ma'am, just before Mr. Tom Walter's demise, we were performing. We had a Tom Walter festival in in town, and I did two plays with him, Ghalib and Ghalib ke Khutut, and you had come for
I
both
was
of the
there
plays.
for both of them.
Yes,
Yes. Okay.
yes. And Tom Saab was so proud. He was saying, "This is called a friend. ये होता है दोस्त. दोस्त हो तो ऐसा हो." It was a very overwhelming feeling, and it was a great festival of all of Tom Saab's plays. And ma'am, you have been super encouraging, not only to well-known personalities, as you said, even to beginners, even to newcomers. You are a great support of encouragement to a lot of people, and a lot of people look up to you for inspiration, ma'am. Ma'am, thank you so much for spending time for us, and truly grateful and indebted to you for your time, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you, Ali. It's been a pleasure pouring my heart out and saying exactly what I want.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. And I'll just end this broadcast. Please be online